Welcome, everyone. Today we're diving deep into photobiomodulation, or PBM.
TDM.
You got it.
Yep.
And its potential in treating some really tough conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Right.
These diseases are affecting more and more people.
It's true.
And the current treatments, well, they don't always cut it.
Yeah.
So the idea of using light,
Light.
yes, light, to possibly treat these conditions is pretty amazing, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. What's so fascinating is that PBM uses specific types of light, like red and near-infrared wavelengths.
Okay, so not just any light will do.
Right. It's the specific light that can actually stimulate those cells.
Interesting.
And it's a non-invasive approach.
So no surgery or anything like that.
Exactly. And there's more and more research showing it can really make a difference.
You know, I have to be honest, when I first heard about using light to treat brain disorders, I thought, is this science fiction?
I can understand that.
But the research you sent over, it's really eye-opening.
It's pretty remarkable.
So let's break it down for our listeners. How does PBM actually work?
Well, it all starts with those tiny powerhouses inside our cells, the mitochondria.
Mitochondria, those are the energy factories, right?
That's right. They're essential for our cells to function.
And PBM targets these directly.
It does. Now imagine shining a specific kind of light on these cells.
Okay.
And that light gets absorbed by this key enzyme in the mitochondria.
Oh, so there's like a target within the mitochondria?
Right. It's called cytochrome C oxidase.
Cytophy oxidase.
Yes. And when this absorption happens, it sets off a chain reaction.
A chain reaction of what exactly?
Of beneficial effects.
Okay, now I'm intrigued.
One of those is increased ATP production.
Now remind me, ATP, that's the fuel that powers all the cellular processes, right?
Exactly. It's the energy currency of our cells.
The PBM is like giving our cells a boost of energy.
A much-needed boost. And this is particularly important because a lot of neurodegenerative diseases are linked to problems with the mitochondria.
So it's like the energy factories in our brain cells start to malfunction.
Precisely.
Leading to all sorts of problems.
Right, and that's where PBM comes in.
So PBM is essentially jump-starting those struggling mitochondria.
Exactly. It's giving those tired brain cells a revitalizing jolt of energy.
And that leads to improvements.
It can lead to improvements in memory, focus, even mood.
So it's not just about physical changes in the brain.
Not at all.
It's about impacting how people feel and function day to day.
Exactly. But wait, there's more.
More. You mean it gets even better than this?
It does. PBM also helps to reduce something called oxidative stress.
Oxidative stress, that sounds bad.
It can be. Think of it like rust building up on a car.
Okay, I can visualize that.
Oxidative stress is kind of like cellular rust, causing wear and tear on our cells.
So our cells get rusty too.
In a way, yes.
And PBM helps with this.
It acts like a rust-proofing agent.
I like that analogy.
Slowing down that damage and keeping our cells functioning smoothly.
So we've got this energy boost, and we're protecting our cells from damage.
Right.
That's two amazing benefits already.
And there's a third. PBM can even influence how our genes are expressed.
Wait, are we talking about actually changing our genes?
Not changing the genes themselves, but influencing how they operate, how they're expressed.
Oh, okay, so it's more like fine-tuning how our genes work.
That's a great way to put it, and this has implications for a wide range of cellular processes.
This is incredible.
But what's really fascinating is how PBM interacts with the brain's immune system.
Okay, now we're talking about the brain's defenses.
Right, you see, we have these specialized cells in the brain called microglia.
Microglia, I've heard that term before.
They're like the brain's own immune cells, constantly patrolling and protecting.
So like tiny little guards.
Exactly. But in neurodegenerative diseases, these microglia can sometimes become overactive.
Overactive? How so?
Well, instead of protecting, they can start causing inflammation and damage to neurons.
So it's like the brain's defense system turning against it.
Sadly, yes, that can happen.
And this is where PBM steps in again.
Yes. PBM can actually influence these microglia.
It can tell them what to do.
In a way, yes. It encourages them to shift from a damaging pro-inflammatory state to a more beneficial one.
So instead of attacking healthy cells, they start protecting them.
Exactly.
Sure.
This shift is called microglial polarization.
Microglial polarization. Got it.
And it's a crucial part of how PBM works.
Wow, so it's energy production, cellular protection, influencing gene expression, and now modulating the immune system.
It's a multifaceted approach.
Pretty impressive, I'd say.
And we're just scratching the surface.
There's more.
Oh, yes. Now, we've talked about the theory, but what about the actual results? What are we seeing in research?
Okay, let's get down to the evidence.
Let's take Alzheimer's disease as an example.
A condition that affects so many.
Right. And studies using animal models have shown that PBM can actually improve cognitive function,
Meaning?
meaning better memory, thinking abilities.
Wow, so real improvement.
Real and measurable improvements. And it's not just improving function, it's also reducing the buildup of those harmful amyloid beta plaques.
Amyloid beta plaques, those
Yeah.
are one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's, right?
They are, and PBM is showing it can reduce them.
So it's not just symptom management, it's potentially addressing the underlying disease process.
Exactly.
Now, what about Parkinson's disease?
Similar exciting results are emerging there.
Tell me more.
PBM has been shown to protect dopaminergic neurons, the very neurons that are lost in Parkinson's, leading to movement problems.
So it's protecting the cells that are critical for movement.
Right, and in animal models, it's even improving motor function.
So we're seeing improvements across a range of conditions.
That's what's so exciting about this research.
But all of this has been in lab settings, right? What about humans?
Well, there are clinical trials underway, and some studies involving dementia patients have shown some very promising results.
Like what?
Things like enhanced cognitive function and even improved sleep quality, which is often disrupted in those with dementia.
So we're seeing real potential in both preclinical and clinical settings.
Absolutely.
This is all incredibly encouraging. But I have a question about those specific wavelengths you mentioned earlier.
You mean 635 millimeters and 810 millimeter?
Those are the ones. What's so special about them?
Well, they fall within the red and near infrared range.
And why is that important?
This range is considered the sweet spot for PBM's therapeutic effects.
So it's not just any red light. It's got to be within this specific range.
Exactly. And different wavelengths can have slightly different biological effects.
So it's like fine-tuning the light to target specific things in the cells.
That's a great way to think about it.
It's fascinating.
And this is where ongoing research is crucial to figure out the optimal wavelengths for different conditions.
Now, this whole discussion is making me think about MedWave Group.
MedWave Group.
Yes, the company we've partnered with for this episode.
Ah, yes. They're a leading innovator in the field of PBM.
And they're creating some amazing devices and protocols to help people with these conditions.
They are.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about MedWave and how their work is shaping the future of neurodegenerative disease treatment.
Okay, I'm happy to dive into that.
What sets MedWave apart from others in this field?
Well, for one, they're deeply committed to scientific rigor.
So it's not just about hype, it's about solid research.
Exactly. And they've invested heavily in research to create devices that deliver those key wavelengths we talked about.
The 635 millimeters and 810 millimeters.
Yes. And they're designed to target those cellular processes that are crucial for brain health.
So it's not just about shining any light. It's about using the right kind of light delivered in the right way.
You got it. And MedWave's use of those specific wavelengths is backed by extensive research.
So they're not just guessing, they're following the science.
Exactly. They've developed specialized protocols based on the latest findings, ensuring that the light therapy is optimized for maximum benefit.
It sounds like they're taking this amazing science and translating it into real-world solutions.
That's exactly what they're doing, and I'm excited to share more about their approach.
Me too. Let's dig deeper and see how MedWave is making a difference in the lives of people living with these challenging conditions.
Absolutely. They've developed these really advanced delivery systems.
Delivery systems, what do you mean?
Well, to make sure that the light actually gets to those targeted areas of the brain.
Ah, I see. So it's not as simple as just, pointing a light at the head.
No, not at all. It's much more sophisticated than that.
Okay, so how do they actually do it?
They've really taken into account the structure of the brain.
The structure.
Yes, like how to deliver light to those deeper brain structures.
Why is that so important?
Well, think about it. Those deeper structures, they're involved in so many vital functions.
Like what?
Things like movement, cognition, even emotional regulation.
So really essential stuff.
Exactly. And conditions like Parkinson's, for instance, they often affect those deeper areas.
So if you want to treat those conditions with light.
Right. You need to make sure that light can actually penetrate effectively. Yeah. And that's one of the things that MedWave has really focused on.
It sounds like they're really thinking about every aspect of this.
They are.
But I'm sure our listeners are wondering, okay, all of this sounds promising, but are we actually seeing positive results in people using MedWave's PBM therapies?
That's the key question, right?
It is.
And while research is ongoing, and we're always learning more, the initial findings from clinical studies and anecdotal reports are really encouraging.
Okay, so we're seeing some positive signs.
We are.
Can you give us some specific examples of how people are benefiting?
Sure. For example, some individuals with Alzheimer's disease who have been using MedWave's PBM therapy.
Yeah.
They're reporting some really noticeable improvements in their cognitive function.
That's great to hear. What kinds of improvements?
Things like better memory recall.
So remembering things more easily.
Yes. And finding it easier to focus, even having more fluent conversations.
Wow, those are such meaningful improvements, things that can really make a difference in someone's day-to-day life.
Absolutely.
And what about for those with Parkinson's disease? Are there similar success stories?
There are. Some individuals with Parkinson's, after receiving MedWave PBM therapy, they're seeing improvements in their motor function.
So things like movement.
Exactly. Reduced tremors, improved balance.
So they're feeling more steady.
Right. And they're even finding it easier to do things
Like what?
like everyday tasks that were challenging before, things we might take for granted.
Right, like buttoning a shirt or tying shoes.
Things like that, exactly.
It's really remarkable to see how this kind of therapy is offering, not just hope, but real, tangible improvements.
It really is. And it's important to remember these are just a few examples.
Right.
As research continues and as more people are treated, we're likely to see even more compelling evidence of PBM's potential.
It's like we're just at the beginning of this journey.
I think so.
We've been focusing on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, but I'm curious, does MedWave PBM have potential applications for other neurological conditions as well?
That's a great question, and the answer is absolutely.
Really?
Yes. The research in PBM is expanding so rapidly.
It seems like there's so much potential.
There is. And we're seeing promising results across a whole spectrum of neurological conditions.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell us more about these other potential applications.
Well, for instance, there's growing evidence that PBM could be really helpful in treating traumatic brain injuries.
Brain injuries.
Yes. Imagine a therapy that could help to promote tissue repair.
So helping the brain heal.
Right. And reduce inflammation, maybe even enhance neurogenesis.
Neurogenesis now, what's that?
That's the formation of new brain cells.
So essentially helping the brain regenerate.
Exactly. And this could be incredibly beneficial after a brain injury.
Makes sense.
And it's not just limited to brain injuries. Research is also looking at PBM for stroke recovery.
Stroke recovery. Interesting.
It's similar to brain injuries,
Right.
where PBM could help to protect those neurons.
Further damage.
Right. Reduce inflammation and support those natural healing processes.
It's like PBM is giving the brain a little extra help in its recovery.
That's a great way to put it.
It sounds like PBM has this amazing ability to, boost the brain's own resilience.
It really does.
And not just in acute situations, but also in more chronic conditions, right?
You're right. The research is suggesting that PBM could also be helpful in managing things like
Like what?
multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, even chronic pain.
Wow, the list keeps growing.
It's really exciting to see how this field is developing.
It is. It makes you wonder what other possibilities are out there.
Exactly. And that's why continued support for research is so vital.
So we can keep uncovering these amazing potential applications.
Right. And MedWave is really leading the charge in this new frontier.
It's inspiring to see their dedication to both the science and to the people who can benefit from it.
What's even more inspiring is the impact these therapies are having on people's lives.
In what way?
We're seeing individuals who are regaining lost function, improving their quality of life, really experiencing renewed hope.
That's what makes it all worthwhile. Right.
Absolutely.
As we're talking about all these amazing benefits,
Right.
it's important to remember that PBM is still relatively new.
You're right. It's a young field.
And while the initial research is promising, we still need to do more rigorous studies
Absolutely.
to really understand how it all works
Exactly. And to fine-tune the treatment protocols.
and to identify any potential limitations.
Of course, every therapy has its limitations.
Right. So it's not a magic bullet,
Not at all, but it's a powerful tool.
and it needs to be carefully studied and applied.
Precisely. And MedWave understands this. They're committed to transparency and evidence-based medicine.
Which is so important.
It is.
We've talked a lot about the science,
We have.
but I'm also curious about the human side of this.
What do you mean?
What are some of the challenges that, people with neurodegenerative diseases and their families, what are they facing every day?
That's a really important question.
And how is MedWave addressing those challenges?
Right.
Well, living with the neurodegenerative disease, it's incredibly challenging.
In what ways?
It affects not just the individual, but also their loved ones.
Of course.
These diseases, they often progress so slowly,
Yeah.
gradually impacting independence, memories, even one's sense of self.
Heartbreaking to think
And it
of.
really is. And the emotional toll, it can be immense.
For everyone involved.
Exactly. Families often grapple with feelings of helplessness, frustration, even grief.
As they watch their loved one decline.
It's so difficult.
So it's not just the physical symptoms, it's the entire impact on their lives, their relationships.
Right. And that's where MedWave's approach is so valuable.
How so?
They're not just focused on treating the symptoms, they're also working to empower patients and families
Empower them how?
by providing education, support, a sense of community.
That's so important.
It is. It's about recognizing that treating the whole person means addressing not just their physical needs, but also their emotional and social well-being.
It's a more holistic approach.
Exactly. MedWave is committed to walking alongside patients and their families throughout their journey,
That's beautiful.
offering guidance, resources, and just a compassionate ear.
That can make all the difference.
It can.
It sounds like MedWave is going above and beyond to create a truly supportive environment.
They are. And it's this combination of, scientific excellence, patient-centered care,
Right.
and a deep understanding of the human impact of these diseases.
That makes them stand out.
It does.
Couldn't agree more.
And it's clear that they're not just developing therapies, they're fostering hope.
Hope for a better future.
Exactly. And empowerment for those facing these really challenging conditions.
It's an inspiring mission.
It is.
And I'm eager to hear more about what the future holds.
Me too. The potential is really limitless.
What do you mean?
I believe that PBM has the potential to not just treat, but to actually prevent neurodegenerative diseases.
Prevent them altogether.
That's the dream.
Now, that's a bold statement.
It is, but think about it.
Right.
It all goes back to those core mechanisms we talked about.
Yeah.
Supporting the mitochondria, reducing oxidative stress, modulating the immune response.
Right.
Imagine if we could target these processes before any signs of the disease even appear.
So instead of waiting for symptoms, we could be proactive.
Exactly. We know that many of these diseases have a long preclinical phase.
Preclinical.
Yes, where changes are happening in the brain long before any noticeable symptoms.
Oh, wow.
What if we could use PBM during that phase
To sort of prepare the brain?
to bolster its defenses?
To make it more resilient.
Exactly. And potentially delay or even prevent the onset of these conditions.
That's incredible. But is there any research to back this up?
There is, and it's really encouraging.
Tell me more.
Some studies have shown that PBM can actually enhance cognitive function and memory in healthy older adults.
So even if you don't have any signs of a neurodegenerative disease,
Right. PBM could help keep your brain sharp as you age.
that's amazing.
It is, and that's where it gets really interesting. If PBM can do that for healthy individuals, could it also help prevent or slow down the decline we see in conditions like Alzheimer's?
That's the big question.
It is, and it's a question that researchers are actively exploring.
It could completely change how we think about brain health.
It could. Imagine a future where PBM is just a routine part of preventative care.
Wow, that would be incredible.
It would. But of course, it's important to remember PBM wouldn't be a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. Everyone's different.
Exactly. Just like any other aspect of healthcare, preventative PBM would need to be personalized,
Meaning?
tailored to the individual's needs and risk factors.
So taking into account their genetics, their lifestyle.
All of that. And that's where MedWave's focus on patient education is so important.
So people can understand their own risks.
And make informed decisions about their brain health.
Are there any specific lifestyle factors that, might increase the risk of developing a neurodegenerative disease?
Absolutely. Things like chronic stress, poor sleep, lack of exercise, an unhealthy diet.
So basically the same things that are bad for our overall health.
Exactly. Taking care of our bodies and minds is crucial for protecting our brains as we age.
So it's a holistic approach.
It is.
It's not just about PBM, it's about creating a lifestyle that supports brain health.
Right. PBM has incredible potential, but it's not a substitute for those foundational things.
Like exercise and sleep.
Exactly. It's about using all the tools we have to protect our cognitive well-being.
It sounds like PBM and lifestyle changes could work together really well.
They can. It's a synergistic approach.
And it's inspiring to see a company like MedWave embracing that holistic approach.
They really are committed to both scientific advancement and patient education.
They're not just developing therapies, they're empowering individuals to take charge of their own brain health.
That's right.
It's amazing.
And their vision is to make PBM accessible to everyone.
Everyone.
Yes, regardless of their background or financial situation.
That's a beautiful vision.
It is.
It's a vision of a future where these diseases no longer have the power they once did.
A future where we have the knowledge and the tools to protect our brains.
And live long, healthy lives.
Exactly.
You know, this conversation has been so eye-opening.
Me too.
It's left me feeling really optimistic about the future of brain health.
I feel the same way.
And I hope our listeners are feeling that way too.
I hope so. You know, the field of PBM is constantly evolving.
There's so much more to discover.
There is.
This is just the beginning.
It is. And we'll continue to follow the latest advancements and share them with our listeners.
As this exciting field unfolds.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in.
We'll see you next time. So we've talked about how PBM can help to treat these conditions.
Right, all this amazing potential.
But now let's talk about prevention.
Prevention. You mean using PBM to actually prevent these diseases from developing in the first place? That sounds almost too good to be true.
I know, it's pretty incredible, but think about it.
Okay.
It all goes back to those key mechanisms we discussed. Supporting mitochondrial function, reducing oxidative stress, and keeping that brain inflammation in check.
Right. Those are all crucial for a healthy brain.
They are. And imagine if we could target these processes before someone even shows signs of a neurodegenerative disease.
This is like a proactive approach to brain health.
Exactly. Instead of waiting for symptoms to appear, we could be strengthening the brain's defenses in advance.
I like that. Strengthening the brain's defenses.
We know that many neurodegenerative diseases have this long preclinical phase.
Preclinical
Meaning changes are already happening in the brain years, sometimes even decades, before any noticeable symptoms.
Wow. So the disease process is already underway, but silently?
Right. And that's where PBM could come in during that preclinical phase.
To sort of give the brain a fighting chance.
To bolster its resilience, to make it more resistant to those damaging processes.
That's an amazing concept. But is there any research to support this idea of using PBM for prevention?
There is, and it's really encouraging.
Tell me more.
Some studies have shown that PBM can improve cognitive function and memory in healthy older adults.
So even in people who don't have any signs of a brain disorder?
Exactly. It's like giving the brain a little extra boost.
To stay sharp.
Right. And if PBM can do that for healthy individuals, imagine what it could do for those at risk of developing a neurodegenerative disease.
It's like we could potentially slow down or even prevent those conditions from taking hold.
That's the hope. And that's why research in this area is so exciting.
It's like a whole new frontier in brain health.
It is. And a future where PBM could be a routine part of preventative care.
Wow, that would be amazing.
Wouldn't it? Just like we get regular checkups for our heart health.
Right, we could have checkups for our brain health.
Exactly. And PBM could be a key part of that.
But of course, like you said before, it's not a magic bullet.
No, it's not a cure-all.
And it's important to remember that everyone's different.
Absolutely. So preventative PBM would need to be personalized, just like any other healthcare approach.
Tailored to the individual's needs and risks.
Exactly. And that's where education comes in, so people can understand their own risk factors.
And make informed decisions about their brain health.
Right. And there are definitely things we can all do to reduce our risk of developing these conditions.
Like what?
Well, we know that things like chronic stress, poor sleep, lack of physical activity, an unhealthy diet, all of those can increase your risk.
So the same things that are bad for our overall health are also bad for our brain health.
Exactly. Taking care of your body is taking care of your brain.
So it's a holistic approach.
It is. PBM has this incredible potential, but it's not a substitute for a healthy lifestyle.
It's about combining those healthy habits with the power of PBM.
Exactly. And that's where a company like MedWave really shines.
How so?
They're not just focused on developing therapies, they're also committed to educating and empowering their patients.
So it's about giving people the knowledge and the tools to take control of their brain health.
Right. And their vision is to make PBM accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or financial situation.
That's a beautiful vision. A vision of a future where these diseases no longer hold the power they once did.
A future where we have the tools to protect our brains and live long, healthy, and fulfilling lives.
It's an inspiring vision.
It is.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
I agree.
We've explored the science, the potential, the hope that PBM offers.
And the future possibilities.
It's really left me feeling optimistic about the future of brain health.
Me too. And I hope our listeners are feeling the same way.
I hope so too. The field of PBM is just getting started, and there are so many exciting discoveries yet to come.
We're just at the beginning of this journey.
Exactly. And we'll continue to follow the latest advancements and share them with you, our listeners, as this amazing field unfolds.
We will.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the world of PBM.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in.